This modern, groundbreaking young adult anthology explores the complexity and beauty of interracial and LGBTQ+ relationships where differences are front and center. Here is a look at Color Outside the Lines, which was edited by Sangu Mandanna. I will be reading to you an excerpt from Turn the Sky to Petals by Anna-Marie McLemore. I guess I could start with the flowers, the hundreds of thousands of red dahlia petals gathered into baskets at the behest of a rich man. But that would make what happened more about the rich man than about you and me. This is the way I would tell it, what happened between us. This is how I would piece it together from what I saw and the things you told me. We did not grow up far apart. My school played yours in a handful of sports, so we might have met. You had that season on the soccer team before deciding that the practices took too much time away from the cymbalom. Me, I never played school sports. I never even tried. There was never one I loved enough to spend my tendons on it. You know what I'm talking about. You knew the first time I told you, because the feeling I know in my ankles, the countless small tears, the sensation of muscle wringing itself out, is one you know in your wrists, your lower forearms, parts of you that you need for the instrument that has you by the heart. Your gringo teacher often told you what immense promise she saw in you. She said that you would elevate the cymbalom to the level of great orchestra. You winced every time, shrugging away the insult, because while she thought of it as a carnival instrument, you always knew it to be the collection of wood and metal strings that gives music all its colors. You learned to repair the steel and copper strings yourself because there were so few who knew how to do it. And finding a repair shop in our constellation of rural towns was never easy or cheap. And there was no one you really wanted to trust with the instrument your grandfather had left you. Your grandfather, who performed in both city squares and grand halls, and who you thought of when your music teacher watched you, her stare so intense it burned into your back. She is beautiful, your music teacher, but I think her beauty dimmed to you every time she pushed you to play the Lisette again, even when you were past the time the lesson was meant to end, even when your tendons felt like they were tearing apart in your wrists, even when your forearms felt like they were turning to flames. Your mother, you told me, worried as you iced your wrists at night, and you told her not to, that if musicians wanted to become great, sometimes it involved pain. She pressed her lips together and made you lay bags of frozen peppers under your forearms, because if you had to ice your wrists, you might as well bring yourself a little luck at the same time. After a bag had half thawed, she would throw it into a heated pan, add it to what she was cooking. You told me that later, when your family ate together, you couldn't decide if you were eating your own pain or your own luck. Any bystander might not think the instrument you love so much would wear down the tendons in your wrists and forearms. They would simply marvel at how quickly your hands moved, how precisely you struck the beaters against the strings, the tips making the timbres sound different depending on whether the leather is hard or soft. But that is because your skill, your effort, the hours of practice on your grandfather's cymbalom and the one at your music teacher's house made it look easy. Your hands flew, changing direction as quickly as hummingbirds, always finding the right place to land. but any bystander would not feel the collecting effect of all those impacts. They would not know the wearing down caused by hundreds of thousands of times striking the beaters just where they needed to hit. They would not guess at the tension in your wrists, the taut muscle in your forearms, the tiny friction every time you bring a beater down. Do that enough times, and the pain in your wrists will probably be enough to wake you up at night. Do that enough times, and it will startle you out of sleep, leaving you with the memory of dreams in which your arms are branches on fire. And this has been a preview of Color Outside the Lines.